And patience, not as a bad word, not as a derogatory word. Clean our screen up here. So we'll give a minute for our streaming platforms here to get lined up. Welcome, my friends. Here we are. We are talking about staying on the bus. We're talking about not giving in to impatience, and we're looking at patience as not a bad word. It's so easy in our culture to think of patience as this bad thing, this kind of loser's trophy. But patience isn't a derogatory term. So let me give a moment here. Comment book club if you want to join our book club. Go, welcome. I'd love to hear where everyone's calling in from. Here we go. Okay. So we are reading 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. On this beautiful Friday, weather's opening up, summer is here. We are reading 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. We're talking about patience, and we're talking about staying on the bus. Because so many times we start something, actually I don't need these, I don't know why I got these AirPods in, they're just making it weird for me in my ears. So we start it out, and then it feels like it's not getting anywhere, and so we get off the bus. But there's a really beautiful vignette here at the end of this chapter that highlights why we need to stay on the effing bus. So we're going to talk about 3 principles of patience to help us actually stick to and continue with the things that are important to us, even when they're hard. So we'll give a few moments here, and please, ask questions throughout. If you guys can give your comments, your reflections. But we'll get started here. All right, so we're reading 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals, Chapter 11, Staying on the Bus. Patience has become something, maybe it's not become something, maybe it's always been this thing, that's kind of a last resort. And I love Father Richard Rohr says this. He says that in the United States, in the West, we view freedom as the freedom to do whatever we want. The freedom to have life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. We see freedom as synonymous with control. But if freedom is just being in control of our lives, well, then what happens when we're not in control? That would mean we're not free. And so our ability to be free then is dictated not internally, but it's dictated externally. And so he says there's another type of freedom, a true kind of transcendent freedom that isn't about the freedom to do whatever we want or have whatever we want. It's the freedom to find peace interiorly. It's the freedom to meet life on its terms. It's the freedom from the need to be in control. And this freedom is patience. Now, patience is not something that you can effort. Patience isn't something that you can try to do. In fact, the more you try to be patient, it can feel like the more impatient you are. But patience is the choice to let go of our need for life to move at the pace that we dictate, and instead to be here in life as it is. Patience is the participation in life in which we allow things to take the time that they take, as Mary Oliver says. We allow the, Eigenzeit, I think it's the German word, which means the time inherent to a process itself. And so here, on staying on the bus, one of the things that Berkman starts out talking about is that there's this art teacher, and she's become famous for this assignment. She teaches at Harvard University, Jennifer Roberts. And the assignment that she gives to her students is to sit in front of a painting for 3 hours straight. And I want you to just take a moment to sit with that. Notice the feeling that's coming up. Drop it. I'd love to hear about it. The feeling that comes up when you think about just sitting in front of one painting for 3 hours. And the reason she said that she created this assignment was because we're in such a rush. She said she felt as if she would be failing in her duties if she didn't also work at attempting to influence the tempo at which her students worked, helping them to slow down to the speed that art demands. Indeed, I think it's the speed that our lives demand. Robert says they needed someone to give them permission to spend this type of time on anything. Somebody had to give them a different set of rules and constraints than the ones that were dominating their lives. So right now, I just want to invite you to reflect for a moment. What are the unspoken rules about time, about getting things done, about being efficient, about being expeditious, about the need to accomplish things, the needs to have things together? What are the unspoken rules of your life that are pushing you? There's this quote that I heard, I don't know if it's T.S. Eliot, but they said, it was describing a character in the book, and they said, he lives constantly 2 inches in front of his body. And so this exercise that Roberts gives her students to sit in front of a piece of art for 3 hours, just as an experiment, forces us to not lean in. It forces us to notice the excruciation of pushing forward. It forces us to notice how little we notice. And just ask yourself, really, when's the last time you spent 3 hours doing anything? Anything at all? Our lives are so filled with doing this, this to this, to this, to this. And busyness isn't so much about how many things we have to do in our schedule. Busyness is the quality of the mind rushing to the next thing. Even right now, notice within yourself, the weekend's coming up. You're sitting here, you're tuning into this live video, maybe trying to figure out if it's worth listening to, maybe worth trying to figure out if you should listen till the end. Always constantly checking, is this worth it? Measuring everything against some arbitrary timeline. And just notice what would happen if you just stepped back from that. And Bergman talks about how uncomfortable he was in this exercise as he sat in front of this painting for 3 hours. And he said, around the 80-minute mark, without noticing precisely how it happened, I noticed a shift. I finally gave up attempting to escape the discomfort of time passing so slowly. And when I gave up the resistance to the slowness of time, the discomfort went away. He describes this, in the words of psychology, as a second-order change. It's true that in life we have these incremental changes, this first-order change where we get better at something and better at something and better at something. But there's a different kind of change called the second-order change, in which it's a way of changing the way we see the world that changes everything. The second-order change has now occurred. When you abandon your futile efforts to dictate the speed at which your experience moves, your true experience can begin. And there becomes this experience of patience, turning life into something that's tangible, almost edible, something that you can almost chew on. The reward for surrendering your need to control time is that at last you get to experience life as it is here and now with freedom. He talks about how there's this gentleman who said, I'm never good at cars. I'm never good at mechanical things. I'm never good at fixing things. He said this to his neighbor, and his neighbor said, it's because you never give it the time. And that kind of chipped away at this guy's ego. And he said there was a time that one of his clients, actually, their car wasn't working, the parking brake wasn't working. And he remembered what he said. He said, you don't give it the time. And so he got down, he looked at the parking brake, and he just observed it. And this is a key point in Montessori, in the Montessori philosophy of raising children. That's just beautifully changed the way that, my wife and I kind of approach our kids. Rather than jumping in to try to fix the kid's needs or figure out, what do you want? What do you want? You just pause and you look at your child and you listen to their need and you take the time to observe what's happening within them and for them. And then you respond. Peck's insight here is this: if you're willing to endure the discomfort of not knowing, a solution will often present itself. I'll say that again, and I want to invite you to just close your eyes and let this sink in. If you're willing to endure the discomfort of not knowing, a solution will often present itself. And this larger point applies almost everywhere to life, to creative work and relationships, politics and parenting. On page 179, Berkman says, we're made so uneasy by the experience of allowing reality to unfold at its own speed that when we're faced with a problem, it feels better for us to rush towards a resolution, any resolution, so long as we can tell ourselves that we're dealing with the problem. And we do this because we care more about maintaining the feeling of control than about actually responding to life's difficulties. We are afraid to feel out of control. And yet there's no meaningful life lived without recognizing that most things in life can't be controlled by us. What we can control is our attitude. What we can control is our response. I heard this said the other day on a podcast, that life becomes infinitely better and more easy to navigate when you realize that the answers are downstream. When you allow yourself to go downstream rather than fighting up the current of the water. This is what we do. We resist life. And it's so deep in the zeitgeist of the American culture, the Western culture, of take life by the horns, make it what you want. We're kind of taught that you have to swim up the river. And there's something to this effort. But that effort is disordered when it's not equally balanced with our ability to flow with the waters downstream. The answers are downstream. So flow with the water. When we let go of our need to be in control and our belief that freedom is doing what we want, that need to do what we want, that belief that freedom is doing what we want, that's slavery to control. If you have to have control of your life, if that's what freedom is to you, well then whatever freedom you feel is only going to be an illusion. Because almost everything is out of our control. But if rather we can find freedom from the need to be in control, this is where patience comes in. The ability to allow life to take the time that it takes. And this is interior freedom. And so Berkman gives us 3 principles that we'll talk about here for patience. 3 principles to allow the time that it takes. And I'm going to list them here and then we'll go through each one. The first principle is to develop a taste for having problems. The second principle is to embrace radical incrementalism. Things changing slowly in small increments. The third principle is that originality lies on the far side of unoriginality. What's up, Jason? We'll talk another time, man. This is the book study, and we'll hop on and talk on another time, man. I would love that. So these 3 principles of patience are first developing a taste for having problems. He says, usually we have this fantasy that causes us a lot of distress. And that fantasy is the belief that once we fix something, we'll open up into this wide open space of life and there won't be any other problems. And so that desire and that need to solve this problem so that we can just relax makes us so unhappy. Because in life, as soon as you solve one problem, another problem shows up. And here we're reading from 4,000 Weeks, Time Managed for Mortals. Somebody asked in the comments. So this is why the story of the Medusa, the story of dragons, over and over again, you cut one head off and two more appear. And so the key of this mythology is that the answer in life is not to keep chopping the head off. It's to step back and realize we need a different type of solution. Because when you feel like there's only two options, you're already too close. When you feel like the answer is just to snuff out the problem, you're just going to have another problem that shows up. And so if we can learn that life is really just a series of problems, one after another, that's actually kind of what makes it meaningful. Then when problems arise, we can approach it not as a threat, but as an opportunity for creatively working with the flow of life. He says here on page 181, once you give up on the unattainable goal of eradicating all of your problems, it becomes possible to develop an appreciation for the fact that life just is a process of engaging with one problem after another, giving each the time that they require. That the presence of problems in your life isn't an impediment to a meaningful existence, but rather the presence of problems in your life is the very substance of a meaningful existence. Our challenge is to learn how to engage with those problems. And so here is his second point for being patient. He says the second principle is to embrace radical incrementalism. And this really changed things for me because I'm the type of person that wants to kind of binge work. I want to work through a problem. I want to kind of jump in. I want to solve it. And he said that the psychology professor Robert Boyce spent his career studying the writing habits of academics. And he found that the most productive and the most successful academic publishers made writing a smaller part of their daily routine than the others. They made it a smaller part of their everyday routine so that it was much more feasible to keep going day after day. They cultivated the patience to tolerate the fact that they probably wouldn't produce very much on an individual day, with the result that they actually produced so much more over time. Right? Water wears down rock, one drop at a time. And so he says that these writers, they just committed sometimes as short as 10 minutes. They religiously took the weekends off. And what he found was that they were producing much more because it was in their lifestyle. It wasn't this project, this demand to feel good, this demand to accomplish, but rather just a commitment to the writing itself. He said one critical aspect of the radical incrementalism, this choice to just do one small thing at a time, is counter to most of the mainstream advice. And that piece is this, that you need to be willing to stop when your daily time is up, even when you're feeling a burst of energy and feel as though you could get much more done. So this means that if you commit to reading for 10 minutes each day, but you're really loving this book, it actually means stepping away at that moment that you've accomplished 10 minutes of reading each day. Because that's what's going to allow you to continue to do it day in, day out, rather than burning out. Radical incrementalism is the choice to let go of our need to feel productive. And it actually allows us to be productive by staying committed to repeatedly chipping away at our difficulties. And when we stop after we've completed the allotted time for a project, it helps us to strengthen the muscle of patience that will permit us to return to the project again and again and again and allow us to continue to change over time. And this is one of my favorite parts of this chapter. I'm just gonna read these pages here because it's so good. It's about staying on the bus. On page 182, he says this: the final principle of patience is that originality lies on the far side of unoriginality. And before you can become original, you have to go through the unoriginality. You have to stay on the bus. The Finnish-American photographer Arno Mäkinen dramatizes this truth about the power of patience with a parable about Helsinki's main bus station. There are 24 platforms at Helsinki's main bus station, with several different bus lines departing from each one. And for any given part of the journey, each bus leaving from any given platform takes the same route through the city and makes identical stops. So every single bus leaving from Helsinki, no matter where it's going, goes through the same original path and makes the same original stops. And so you can think of each stop as representing 1 year for your career, McKeegan advises his photography students. You pick an artistic direction. Maybe you're working on platinum studies of nudes, and then you begin to accumulate a portfolio. 3 years or 3 bus stops later, you proudly present all your work to the owner of an art gallery. But you're dismayed to be told that your pictures aren't as original as you thought. You're told that they look like cheap knockoffs of the work of the photographer Irving Penn. Irving Penn's bus, it turns out, had been on the same route of yours. At first, you're annoyed. You feel like you've wasted 3 years following somebody else's path. And so you jump off that bus, you get a taxi, and go back to the station. So this time you choose a different bus, a more original bus, a different genre of photography. And a few stops later, the same thing happens. You bring your work to a gallery and you're informed that your new body of work seems like a knockoff too. You get off the bus and you go back to the station, and the pattern just keeps repeating. Nothing you ever produce gets recognized as being truly your own. And each time you produce it, you're told that it's unoriginal. You go back to the bus station and start over on a different bus, that takes the same journey. What's the solution? It's simple, McKean says. Stay on the bus. Stay on the fucking bus. A little further out on their journey through the city, Helsinki's bus route diverges. Each bus has stopped at the same exact stops throughout the city. But after it gets out past the city limits, all the buses plunge off into unique destinations as they go through the suburbs, into the countryside, and beyond. That's where the distinctive work begins. But the work of originality begins at all only for those people who muster the patience to immerse themselves in the unoriginality, to allow themselves to pass the early bus stations, the trial and error phase of copying others, learning new skills, and accumulating experience. The implications of this insight aren't confined to creative work. In many areas of our lives, there's a strong cultural pressure to strike out in a unique direction, to spurn the conventional options of getting married or having kids, or remaining in your hometown, or taking an office job, because we want to do something more exciting. We want to do something more original. We don't want to be like everybody else. Yet, if you always pursue the unconventional in this way, you will deny yourself the possibility of experiencing those other, richer forms of uniqueness that are reserved for those with the patience to travel the well-trodden, unoriginal path first, to find their departure, their originality, their true calling later. As in Jennifer Roberts' 3-hour painting viewing exercise, originality begins with the willingness to stop and be where you are. To engage with this part of the journey instead of always badgering reality to hurry up. To experience the profound mutual understanding of the long married couple, you have to stay married to one person. To know what it's like to have a deeply rooted experience in a community, in a place, you have to stop moving around. Those are the kind of meaningful and singular accomplishments that just take the time that they take. I know for me, when I'm starting out, especially when it's something like writing or making videos or whatever it might be, I can be afraid because I feel like so much of my self-worth can ride on what I do. So I can feel this need to be impressive. I can feel this need to do things that are new. And it means that it makes it really easy to skip the places and the parts of learning the basics so that I can actually use them in new ways. Our culture is inundated with a norm of frustration and impatience, and it is shredding our lives of meaning. There is no meaning in life if we can't learn to be here, no matter where we are. If we're constantly waiting to get there, we're never going to find any meaning. Because even when we get there, there is just another here. And of course, we can hope, we can pray, we can look forward to things with anticipation. But the wisdom of ancient traditions is all, frankly, the same. Learn to be here well. Learn to engage with the trials and the tribulations of this moment. Lean into life. Don't lead ahead of life. Lean into life. Because each moment is welcoming us to become something new. It's welcoming us to expand. And when we put our worth on accomplishing things, or getting there, or prestige, we rob this moment of its meaning. The beautiful reality is that this moment is absolutely, completely new. We take that for granted. I take this for granted. It's easy to get in these habits. But this moment right here, right in front of us, it's completely new. We take this moment for granted. We've become entitled to our very existence. Because we've already existed to ourselves, we take our own existence for granted. We fall into that autopilot, living lives on some conveyor belt. And we miss the miracle of right now, the fact that any of us exist, the fact that our breath is carrying us through the moment, that our heart is beating beyond powers, that we're just being drawn from one moment to the next. And when we try to live in the next moment, we're just never here. And happiness, meaning, joy, it's always and only right here. Now, I'm glad that you like that, Anushka. Yeah, leaning into life, not leaning ahead of it. And so I would love to hear the comments, the questions that y'all have, the reflections. Tell me about impatience for you. What does impatience look like right now? What are the areas of life that you're saying, yeah, but John Paul, but not until this, not until that? Tell me about that internal dialogue that you're having, the challenges, the frustrations, the feeling of like, no, this is crap. What makes impatience painful for you? What are some of the areas that you put your worth into accomplishing or into getting places? What are you hoping for in the future? And what's the cost of it? What's stopping you from being right here? Always waiting for the perfect environment, the perfect moment to act, but it's never come. Yeah, man, and it never will, right? There is no perfection. There's being, there's existence, right? So often our judgments of whether something's good enough or right enough, this happens all the time with communication. I tell my clients so often in communication, they say, oh, I'm waiting for the right time to bring it up. There's almost never a right time to bring things up. There's almost never a right time to communicate about certain things. Again, we have this fantasy that something in our life will happen and the waves and the clouds will part and then it'll feel like the right moment. The right moment is what occurs when we let go of the fantasy and we allow ourselves to be right here. One of the biggest things that stops us from being happy is all of our efforts to be happy. To get the car or the family or the house or the job or to finish school or to move, like whatever these things might be. We put our happiness, we put our meaning on pause, setting it under conditions. And then we never get to access it. We create the moment when we step into the unknown and take the risk. Absolutely. When we allow things to be risky, like everything's a risk and there is no growth in life without risk. Renal, I'm not sure what that, you said, why is the image so? Can you guys see me okay? Is the image coming through? Maybe it's not. But I'd love to hear, yeah, what are some of the other questions and reflections? We can do a little Q&A here on impatience, on living meaningfully, on being here in reality. What's striking you all? Hey, Pittsburgh kid. It's great to see you here. Shout out to Pittsburgh. A little blurry. Well, maybe the internet's not great today. Unfortunately, life is the way that life is, and I don't know if I can do anything of that right now. What are some of the other thoughts, questions, and reflections y'all have? I really love this idea of incrementalism. I really love this idea of staying on the bus. Because so often in life, we commit to things, and then we don't see immediate fruit. And when we don't see immediate fruit, we give up, and we quit. And we quit before giving something the opportunity to actually settle in, to actually find root. And another thing that we do is we try to change our lives in these big, drastic ways. And it's like going into the woods and digging up a big oak tree and then trying to plant it in our front yard and expecting it to grow. That's what we do with these habits. We say, oh, I'm going to go from sleeping till 8:49 when I work at 9, 8:49 every day. I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. It's like, no, it's not going to work. What you water will grow. And so the choice to grow means allowing yourself to commit to incremental changes. One of the things that I tell people is that if you really want your life to change, just learn to do one thing for 20 minutes a day. It doesn't even really matter what it is. It could be reading, it could be going on a walk, it could be meditating, it could be calling a friend, it could be writing, it could be journaling, it could be drawing. It really doesn't even matter. But if you can just pick one thing, your life will improve if you just pick one thing and you commit to doing it 5 days a week. Labeling our own emotions before we can react, help training the nervous system over time. We can give ourselves grace when we forget, and it doesn't mean regression. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, guys, is that like life growth isn't so much about not falling backwards. It's about learning how to respond when we fall backwards. This happened this morning. You know, I was praying and meditating. I was writing and reflecting, and I was journaling, actually writing something that felt like really beautiful to me. It was a really beautiful moment of connection. And then my son took this cup of water and just threw it all over the table, right? He's 2 years old. I got really angry, right? So I went from this place of like beautiful equanimity and peace to just like anger. I yelled, I clapped my hand, I yelled at him. And immediately I knew, like, JP, that was a total overreaction. You scared your child. Like, you screwed up. But for me, what growth means is that I'm not sliding back into shame and saying, you're so terrible, you screwed up your son forever, you're such a bad dad, why don't you practice what you preach? It was a moment to say, like, oh, okay, I made a mistake. What can I do right now? I can let go of my attachment to the mistake and my attachment of what it means to my ego and my identity. I can repair the relationship with my son. I can say, I'm sorry. I can say, buddy, I'm sorry. And that's what I did. I said, buddy, I'm sorry. Daddy lost his temper. That wasn't okay. That was Daddy's fault. I'm really sorry for yelling. I'm really sorry for getting angry. I'm sorry for scaring you. Growth and this kind of interior growth is not about not stumbling or not falling. It's about learning how to just begin again. It's this constant state of conversion where we're letting go of our attachment to our mistakes, and we're letting go of our attachment to ourselves and our self-image of someone that doesn't make mistakes. And we're allowing ourselves to begin in this moment again, which is always completely new. Alan Watts has this quote, and he says, "You are under no obligation to be who you were yesterday." This ability to begin again, it's so vital in ethics. It's the foundation of forgiveness. It's the foundation of apology. It's the foundation of repair. Don't look for a perfect relationship because you will never find one. Look for a relationship in which there's a mutual commitment to repairing ruptures when they inevitably occur. You will hurt your partner will hurt you. Find a partner who does their best to not intentionally hurt you. Find a partner who really commits to growing and healing. But most importantly, seek a partner that is committed and become the partner that's committed to repairing the relationship ruptures when they inevitably occur. There is no relationship without rupture. We want to learn how to be relationships that have repair. That choice and that ability, the freedom to simply begin again. It's not permissiveness for the mistakes that we make. It's not saying, oh, I can do whatever I want. It's just giving ourselves permission to not be dictated by what happened in the last moment, to not be committed to being to who we were yesterday, and allow ourselves to be alive in each moment here as it is. So thank you for being here. If you want to hear my reflections, if you want to get this video, you can comment book club or book study. We're reading 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. We'll be reading again next Friday. And if you want to join the email list, I email a written reflection out with a recording of this video each week, and usually have some form of exercise or in there along with some reflection questions. So comment book club. Get added to the list. I got my robot automation. We'll get your email. We'll set you all up. If you have any other questions, you can drop them here. Thank you all for being here. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the Friday, beginning of the Friday for wherever you are in the world. And we'll continue next week, 12:15 EDT. Next week we will be reading chapter 12, The Loneliness of the Digital Nomad, page 185 on 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. So, comment book club to join, and happy Friday, y'all. Thanks for being here.